Aloha and Xin Chào. This is Johnny Saigon from Vietnam Vivu, welcoming you to a new series I'm doing for my YouTube channel Vietnam Vivu. I'm going to do film reviews of Vietnamese movies for you guys. Probably most of people outside of Vietnam aren't familiar with the Vietnamese movie industry, so I thought it'd be a good series to introduce to you folks who might be interested in pursuing Vietnamese movies, particularly on Netflix, which is probably the easiest way for you folks to watch Vietnamese movies outside of Vietnam. And in honor of Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month of May 2024, today we're going to discuss a film called Mai. It's spelled M-A-I, and it's pronounced Mai, which is a Vietnamese pronunciation. And it's on Netflix right now. I think it just debuted like maybe a few days ago, so it's brand new. So if you're interested in the movie, after a quick synopsis from me, you guys can go and check it out on Netflix. Basically, it's a romantic film, and like most typical Asian films, there's a little bit of a mix of comedy and drama, sometimes action. It's kind of like most of modern Asian movies follow the Hong Kong edict of films, where because back in the day people didn't have a lot of money, so when they want to go watch a movie in the theaters, they want like a full experience. So meaning they want to go inside the movie theater and be able to laugh, be awed by some action and spectacle, and cry because of either sadness or something good but makes you cry. So they want like the full experience of being able to laugh and cry and be entertained all in one movie. So a lot of Asian movies have followed that kind of story making, and Vietnam is no stranger to that as well. And basically, if you're not familiar with Vietnamese movies, the industry is a little bit not as diverse as American cinema, because the industry is so small. They have to kind of follow particular methods that can maximize their success. So basically, the movie industry there followed the rules of making a movie either a comedy movie, that's probably the number one style of movies in Vietnam, or a supernatural or ghost type of movie, and three, some kind of action, either like martial arts or old historical kung fu type of action movies, or sometimes even mafia or gangster movies. So Mai follow more of the romance category, if you were to describe into one category, but it has a little bit of comedy and action as well. And a quick synopsis. I keep on messing up the word. Synopsis of the movie. It's mainly about a man and a woman falling in love. Very simple, right? But the nuances come in that the main male character, and he is played by a man named Tuấn Trần, or if you want to pronounce it in the American way, it's Tuan Tran, but the Vietnamese pronunciation is Tuấn Trần. So he is kind of like a playboy. He's been with like many girls, and when he sees Mai, it's kind of like a conquest. It's kind of like a quest for him to be able to win her over, right? And the character of Mai is played by a relative newcomer because I haven't seen her in many movies, but her name is Phương Anh Dao. That's the Vietnamese pronunciation, and I have a quick photo here of how she looks like. Actually, here I have in the background the official Netflix photo of the movie Mai, and this is her right there. Let me make it into portrait mode. So that's her, Phương Anh Dao. So basically, for this movie, I'm going to follow three pillars. The first being the story, the second being the director, and the third being some of the main cast. And so we briefly touched on the storyline. It follows kind of a rather generic or stereotypical Vietnamese style of romance, where like the guy gets the girl in the end. But there's a little twist because the Vietnamese cinema industry is evolving for better. Before, maybe perhaps in the early 2000s, they kind of follow a very generic way where it's always like a happy ending kind of thing. The guy wins the girl in the end. But I'm glad to see that in the last, I would say, almost maybe like 7 or 8 years ago from now, they have transitioned more into a more practical, more real life approach to storytelling, which is for the better. As far as the Asian film industry goes, I think, in my personal humble opinion, I think the Korean movie industry is number one right now, by far, by head and shoulders above everyone. I've seen a lot of Indian movies on Netflix recently, and I'm rather impressed, but I'm not too familiar. I'm a lot more familiar with the Korean film industry, and it's also my personal favorite because whatever your opinion is of Korea and Korean entertainment industry, I have to give props to the Korean movie industry, where most of the storyline and the acting and everything that's involved is very based on reality and practicality, meaning you will see them speak in a very practical way, like how we would speak to each other in real life, and it doesn't fall into the trope of the soap opera voice. That's my name for it, which a lot of Asian acting falls into, because of the history. There's a lot of like Chinese opera, Vietnamese opera. I'm sure Korea probably has their own edition of opera, Japan, Thailand, and so forth. And in that field, you kind of have to, what I call, use the air voice. So instead of using your diaphragm to talk, which we all do on the regular, that's our regular speaking voices, we use our diaphragm. They use what they call the air voice, which is using their lungs instead of their diaphragm. So meaning, instead of me talking like this to you, they would talk in a very airy voice to over traumatize what they want to say. And it works in certain conditions, but the way that they record the voice, it's very isolated in like a studio booth, so it comes off as very unnatural. Like let's say like if they're in an open field and they speak with that airy soap opera voice, it just doesn't sound real. It sounds like like you can tell that it's a movie. And the Korean movie industry does a very good job of their actors do a very good job of speaking with their regular tone. I know pretty much every movie industry from every country kind of have that over dramatized voice acting style. America is also to do that as well, but at least in the recording studio, whoever the editor or the recorder knows how to add a little bit of the ambient noise so that even though they're using kind of like an airy soap opera voice, like let's say like if they're on the deathbed or they're about to die or some kind of like dramatic situation, and they have to use that airy soap opera voice, at least it sounds more realistic. Because like I'm part Vietnamese, but I have to be real when I see it, and I hate that soap opera voice that a lot of Vietnamese actors fall trap into. And it sounds so soap opera. It sounds so over traumatized. It's really annoying, and it's kind of embarrassing, to be honest. If you want to do a TV show or soap opera, that's where you do it, and that's where it makes the most sense to use the soap opera voice. But when you're making a movie, just like how the entertainment industry, the acting industry is twofold. There are two main pillars in the U.S., right? It's either one, you're acting for film, but the other is that you act for stage. And when you act for stage, you have to project your voice to make it louder, more strong, more forced, more dramatic, so that the people in the back can hear you. While in the movies, you can kind of speak with more nuance because the mic will pick up all of the nuances of your voice. However, like I said, you want to make it as realistic as possible, and you don't want to over dramatize or make it over realistic and to the point where it's being too cartoonish. So what I mean is that the Vietnamese industry has progressed to the point where in this movie the voice acting is actually very good. Even in the dramatic scenes, the sound of the voice sounds very good, and you don't notice kind of like that soap opera voice, the airy voice. So that I give props to, and that's something that I wanted to discuss right off the bat with our first movie review, because sometimes when you watch some certain Vietnamese movies, you will hear that soap opera voice. And so it's good to start off with this movie, which is a 2024 movie. So the Vietnamese movie industry has progressed to this point. So I'm very proud of that, being part Vietnamese myself. So good job, way to go, guys. And so the storyline, let's get back to the storyline. It's like I said, it's about a playboy who meets Mai, and at first he got his own ulterior motive to kind of notch a belt, make a notch on his belt. And she plays a character who is a masseuse. She works in a massage parlor, but a real massage parlor. And in Vietnamese, they have a very funny term. They call what they call a massage for energy, or a massage for tiredness. Meaning when you go and do the real massage, you get out being stronger and more energetic. And while you do the other type of massage, you come out very tired, because obviously you know why. And so she plays a masseuse in a real massage parlor, and the main protagonist, the main male protagonist, goes into the massage parlor and meets her, and actually figures out that she is his new neighbor, because she just moved from the countryside and to the city, which is Ho Chi Minh City. I like to call it Saigon because it's just an easier and shorter way and not have to say Ho Chi Minh City, the longer name for it. So anyways, she goes to work in the city, and that's where they meet. And kind of like through some trials and tribulations, they fall in love. But there are some plot twists, and I don't want to get too far involved into it. But the main hook here is that it doesn't end like the typical romantic, dramatic film, the typical romance film, where everything is supposed to happen as you see it. So there's a little plot twist at the end, which makes the movie quite worth watching, I think, because it shows that the Vietnamese. So, like, if you're interested in the Vietnamese movie industry, it shows the evolution, the progress that's that has been building up since, I would say, the early 2000s. I think that's when the Vietnamese movie industry was able to broaden its horizons, and you know, other big companies were able to get on into the industry by being sponsors, and they were able to get enough funding to make good movies, and not just kind of like the low budget, made for TV kind of movie. And so in about roughly 20-25 years of the movie industry being, taken for being taken seriously about, in the 25 years, they have progressed quite nicely and especially in the last, I would say, 7 or 8 years, like I said before. And this movie does well in showing that progress. So I'm rather proud of what my motherland has done in the movie industry progress. And so I love to quantify things because it just makes things a lot easier to explain. So let's say if the Korean film industry is the top of the top in Asian cinema, if the Korean industry is at a 10, and let's say, like, what's next? Maybe the Chinese film industry. Well, the old 80s and 90s Hong Kong, which I grew up in, that was the top of the top back then. But because of funding and other things, the Hong Kong movie industry is no longer in its golden age. So it's fallen off since then. So I would say probably right now it's like maybe about a 7 or 8 in terms of quality, and maybe same on par with Japanese cinema. And I think Vietnam on that scale falls roughly between. It was around a 5, in my honest, humble opinion. But I think in the last, at least in the last 3 or 4 years, ever since kind of like the pandemic era, people have been stuck in home. So I think that actually, for Vietnam, I think it's actually made the film industry more important. So I've seen more progress in the last 3 or 4 years. So I think right now it's probably at about a 6. I would say it's not anywhere near a 7 for sure. But if you watch this movie in particular, you will see how far they've progressed. If you go after this movie, if you watch this movie, you like it, and you kind of like do a search on Netflix for Vietnamese movies, and you watch other Vietnamese movies of, let's say, like the past 10 or 15 years, you can see how this movie has progressed. Not in terms of like acting and storytelling, but also in the technical terms. They use some pretty good special effects. Actually, I was kind of surprised at some of their special effects. It's not like anything fancy, but for what Vietnam can do, I think that was very impressive, especially with the current climate where the budget is not quite as large as anything else, like let's say in Korea or Japan or China. But I think as far as the whole production of the movie and the directing, so it's directed by a man. His Vietnamese pronunciation is called Trung Thanh, and the English pronunciation would be Tran Thanh. Trung Thanh. I've been very impressed. I've been following him for the last, I would say, 7 or 8 years, and I've been very impressed with his progress as well, because he started in the entertainment industry as an actor, but this guy is so talented. He has been able to add a lot to his resume, add a lot to his skill set. So not only can he act, but he has since progressed to singing. He's not quite a professional singer, but he can sing. He can carry a tune. He's especially very good at being an MC, at being a host, a master of ceremony. And for the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years, since the pandemic, he has dabbled and dipped his toe into directing. And like I said before, this guy is so talented that I think he's probably, in my opinion, probably the best Vietnamese within the country, within Vietnam. He's probably the best director right now. So I'm very impressed with his progress as a director as well. I think maybe or at least the first movie that I saw him as a director was called Bo Yeah, or BO space GIA. Loosely translated, it means old father. Bo is one of the words for father, and yeah means old. So roughly directly translated means old father. He was an actor. He was the main actor, but he also directed that movie. And you can see, if you go back and you are able to find a movie and watch, even comparing the two technical aspects of movie making, you can see that in 3 or 4 years, he's been able to make a much better and polished production with this movie Mai. And in this movie, he plays a very small role. He plays a minor role, but I think that allows him to be more focused on his directing. And so the direction in this movie is very, very good. Pretty much, I was impressed with all of the actors in this movie, actually. I would like to call myself a movie connoisseur, not any like a critic or anything, in that realm, but I do enjoy movies on a deeper level, and I can sense, good acting from bad. And for the majority, I would say at least 80 to 90% of the acting in this movie is very good. The dramatic scenes are dramatic without being overly dramatic. Like the acting is still within the realm of believable, even during the dramatic scenes. I'd just like to point out some of the cast members. So the two main protagonists are Tuấn Trần, like I said, Tuan Tran, and the main protagonist overall is Phương Anh Đào. So Tuấn Trần is here, and Phương Anh Đào is here. And their acting is very good, very realistic. But I also like to point out the acting of a female actress called Hong Dao. Her name is spelled Hong space Dao, and in Vietnamese that's pronounced Hong Dao. I remember growing up watching her. I think she's originally, most of them were anyways born in Vietnam, but she came to America rather early, meaning I would say in the 90s or so, because I remember growing up and watching some skits of her. She started off as a kind of like a comedy sketch actor. So like some variety shows and things like that would also have some kind of comedic performance in there, like some skits. And she would be mainly in those skits because she wasn't a singer or anything like that. So she mainly did either comedic skits or even dramatic, poignant soap opera skits as well. But she's a very good actor, and in this movie, her acting chops really shined. Her acting was very, very grounded. Very practical. All her lines were delivered very deliberately and with conviction. Like there wasn't a lot of wasted words or dialogue. Her performance, the lines that she gave were very deliberate. The words had impact, and so I was very, very impressed by her acting. Because of the two main protagonists having the most airtime, of course, overall they had the best acting, but I felt like the one person that had the most impact when each time she was on the screen was probably Hong Dao. So she plays the male protagonist's mother. and I don't want to spoil too much because she there's some small plot twists within the movie itself before the ending, so you can go and check it out. But she plays like like I would say a small to medium role, but each of her lines were very impactful. So I felt that she was kind of like my dark horse actor in the movie. She gave a very commanding performance, so props to her. And the director, like I said, Jung Tan, he also plays a very minor role. He plays the main protagonist's father. And although I don't feel like his lines were as impactful, it's good that he didn't want to put himself too big of a role in this movie, and it shows because he's directing, and that allow him to make the overall production of the movie better than if he was to play a bigger role, and then he wouldn't have as much time focusing on the actual story and performances of the other actors. Let's see. There are other smaller actors that I was impressed with as well, but I don't want to spoil it too much, so I'll leave it at that. I just want to recommend this movie to you guys as part of the Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So if you have ever been interested in Vietnamese movies, go on Netflix and check this out. It's just dropped recently, like I said, probably within the last several days. And after you watch this movie, if you are interested in seeing other Vietnamese movies, I think right now, as of today's date, which is May 24th or May 25th, which is the next day, there are about 16 Vietnamese movies left on Netflix. It kind of fluctuates depending on how they have paid for the movies' rights to broadcast them. Usually you can find as many as like 20 something, 30 movies, but right now there's only 16, so maybe a good time to catch up on them before they run out. And if you were interested in me dissecting some more of these movies, let me know, because my background is I was born in Vietnam, but I left Vietnam when I was very young, and I grew up in the States. But when I was born there, I lived up to an age where Vietnamese became my main language. So I wasn't bilingual in the sense I learned both the languages at the same time. I learned Vietnamese first for a few years before I came to the States. But I've lived in the States for so long that English is now my primary and main and my native language, I guess you can call it. But I did return to Vietnam and lived there for the majority of the year. For a good 5 years total. During the pandemic, I went back to the States to make sure my folks were okay. Didn't want to be stuck, during the pandemic, because I wasn't sure what would be going down then. It was a very scary time, actually. So anyways, but total, I've been living for the majority of my time in Vietnam for 5 years, so I've been able to get back to my roots, as you can say. And within that 5 years, I've regained the nuances of the culture, the people, the food, the locations, and also mainly the language. So that's where I can help you the most, is the nuances of the language, because I would recommend you watching this movie first. So let's say you are very interested in learning more about the Vietnamese movie industry. I would recommend first to watch the movie in the I think for this movie they don't have an English dub, so you have to watch it in English subtitles. It's not dubbed in English, but what I mean is, watch the movies through the subs, and then if you're so interested in the movie, watch the movie again the second time, and but during your second watch, watch without trying to read the subtitles so much, and watch with the technique where you're watching the actors deliver their lines, because Vietnamese, although it's a language that has its roots in Chinese, It's a monosyllabic language. It's very nuances. It's very nuanced and has many different nuances in the intonation and accent of the word, because one word that's spelled one way can actually have 5 or 7 different definitions based on their accents and intonation. So it's a very intricate language, and perhaps that might have affected the movie industry because of the way the language is. But if you're interested in the language, there's no better way to get an insight into the nuances than through movies and music, right? So now that you have a chance to watch some Vietnamese movies, I welcome you to try a few. And then if you are interested in, you want me to make some more movies like this, or some more clips like this of discussing Vietnamese movies, let me know in the comments of which movie you want me to see. I do have access to more movies in Vietnam through other means. So if you go on Google or whatever and you research some Vietnamese movies you want me to further explain nuances to you, let me know in the comments, and I'll start also watch more movies and do more movie reviews of the Vietnamese movie industry. So I'll be doing more Vietnamese movie reviews for you guys. Like I said, I also love Korean cinema, so I'm actually watching on Netflix right now. I'm watching I forgot the titles because they're rather kind of unique, but like Strong Arm Nam Soon or something like that, of the strong girl. Also it's something the wonderful detective something, the autistic detective, and it's probably one of my favorite shows right now because the actress does such a great job of playing an autistic person. So I recommend you catching that series as well if you can. It's called something the wonderful detective something. And then the third one that I just started watching a couple days ago is the 8 Show. And right at the end when they do the outro, I know something that's very, very cool, that when you spin the 8, it turns into the infinity symbol. So technically the show could also be called the Infinity Show. So I'm only on like episode 3 or 4 or something like that. So I haven't reached the end yet, so I don't know how the 8 symbol and the infinity symbol get into all this, but we shall see. So yeah, happy movie watching, and I'll see you guys in another episode of Vietnamese movie review. Thanks for watching. Aloha and xin chào.